This is my first time in Brazil, but it's not the first time I've seen Brazil. 10 years ago, I saw the lights of Sao Paulo. I saw the mouth of the Amazon. I saw the magnificence of the river in the interior of the country. I saw the gemstone beauty of the Amazon. I saw the fires that burn in the Amazon and the smoke that extends across the Pacific Ocean for 1,000 miles. These sights from space are the sorts of things that make you realize that we're all in one world, that the sandstorms in Africa extend to North America, that the smoke in Brazil extends all the way across the Pacific Ocean. And when I looked down and I saw the beauty of your country, 10 years ago, I said to myself, someday I will visit this place. And this is my first time. I have to say how welcome I feel. When I ask my friends, what will I see in Brazil? What should I go to visit? What churches should I see? What monuments should I see? They said, don't worry, you'll see all that. But that's not what's important. What's important is meeting the people. Seek out the Brazilian people because they will teach you things that you don't know about human relationships, about emotional connections, about how to make friendships, about how to cooperate one person with another to help a third. And as I've been here just a few days, I've already experienced some of that. I had a chance to go to the mountains this weekend and found some friends. Today I took lessons, dance lessons, from Pachi and Fiap. I'm starting to get a sense of what it's like to be here, but I'm not satisfied yet. So I'm going to teach you a little bit today about what it's like to fly on space shuttle, but I hope you will come and teach me a little bit about human relationships. Teach me about how you succeed in cooperating with each other to help another person. As I said, I will talk today about what it feels like to fly in space. I've flown 3 space shuttle flights. I've been to the space station twice. I've done 4 spacewalks. But that's not what's important for you to take home from this talk. What I hope that you will take home from this talk is that if you have a dream, if you have something you truly want to do, you mustn't let anyone ever tell you that can't come true. Because for me, I wanted to be an astronaut for as long as I can remember. I wanted to be an astronaut since I was 4 years old. And when you're in first grade and you want to be an astronaut, that's fine. Because everyone in first grade wants to be an astronaut. And when you're in 5th grade and you want to be an astronaut, that's okay. Because a lot of people in 5th grade still want to be an astronaut. But when you're in high school and you want to be an astronaut, there's nobody left. From the time I was in high school to the time I was a professor at a university, I never met another person that wanted to be an astronaut, who wanted the same dream I wanted. Not one. Or at least not one that would admit it. And well-meaning people said to me, you'll never be an astronaut. Don't waste your time. You're not smart enough. You're not athletic enough. You're not good-looking enough. You don't dress well enough. These people meant well. They wanted me to not have a disappointment, to not spend my life trying for something I would never get, but they were wrong. And I later discovered the people that say these things to you are people whose dreams never came true for them. And you mustn't ever listen to them. The second message is you can't wait for a dream to come true. You have to force the dream to come true. Because if it's a substantive dream, if it's something that's going to change the world or fundamentally change you, it won't be easy. It'll be long, it'll be difficult, and many, many people will try to refuse you entry to that goal. And you mustn't ever give up. So I want to tell you my experience in trying to become an astronaut. I started applying to the Space Shuttle program. The very first year, they would take applications to the Space Shuttle program. I was your age. I was a graduate student, about 23 years old. It was 1978, and I applied to the Space Shuttle program. And I'd done that early because I'd written to an astronaut and asked, how do I become an astronaut? How do I become like you? And he gave me good advice. He said, what you need to do is follow what's in your heart. Go find the thing that interests you most in the world and do that. And if that's flying jet aircraft or if that's being an engineer, go do that. Because if you do that, you will become the best in the world. And you'll find a way to turn that towards space. And that's what NASA's looking for. So I turned down the chance to go fly jets because I didn't really want in my heart to be a pilot. I wanted to be an astronaut. So I was an engineer, 1978, graduate school. I applied to NASA. Let me be an astronaut. Well, naturally I got rejected. I was a student, I was young. That was okay. So in 1979, I applied to be an astronaut. And I got rejected. And that was okay. Well, by 1980, I had my PhD. So I thought it's a new decade. Now I have a shiny PhD. I am really qualified. They're going to take me this time. So in 1980, I applied, and I got rejected. That's all right. 1981, I applied, and I got rejected. Now, I hope you can help me with this, because in 1982, I applied, and I got rejected. Right. So in 1983, I applied, and I got rejected, right. So in 1984, I applied, and I got rejected. Thank you. 1985, I applied, I got rejected. 1986, that was a good year. They didn't take applications that year, so I did not get rejected. 1987, I got rejected. 1988, I go to my boss. I'm a professor by now. I'm a professor at the University of Michigan. I'm an assistant professor. Don't have tenure. And I go to my department chairman, who's my boss, and I say, you know, I need a recommendation letter. I need a recommendation letter to go be an astronaut. And he said, a recommendation letter to do what? Go be an astronaut. I didn't know a single other person in the world who wanted to be an astronaut. I had nobody to talk to. I was embarrassed to admit what my dream was. I didn't want anybody to know because it was silly to them. They'd laugh at me. It was embarrassing. But if you want a letter of recommendation, you have to tell somebody. So he said, okay, fine. Wrote me a letter of recommendation. That was 1988. I thought, with this letter and being a professor, I'm for sure going to get in. But in 1988, I got rejected. So now it's 1989, you have to go back to the same boss. Say, well, I know I got rejected last year, but I'd really like you to write a really good letter this year. And he says, you know, you ought to concentrate more on getting tenure and a little less on this weird space thing that you're interested in doing. And anyway, you're too old. Whoa, you're too old. I'd never thought of that. I'm in my mid-30s. Maybe I'm too old. So I call NASA. I say, NASA, am I too old? NASA says, no, we know who you are. You can keep applying. You're not too old. Okay. So my department chairman says, I'm going to write you a great letter this year, even though I think this is stupid. What was that, 1989? Yeah, 1989. Sent it all in, high hopes, gonna do it, and I got rejected. 1990, got rejected. 1991, rejected. 1992, I got in. 14 years, and I finally got in. The first day at the Johnson Space Center, the chief of the astronaut office looks at the 23 of us who got in that year and says, For you, for every one of you, your dream will come true. You will fly in space. And all of us did. This dream I had from the time as far back as I can remember came true. Despite all the people that said it never would, despite all of the rejections that came along the way, it actually came true. And that is the message of this talk. Whatever your dream is, whatever you want to be, author, doctor, engineer, astronaut, you can do this thing. But along the way, you're going to fail, okay? You're going to fail in this process. The first time you write a manuscript, it's going to be boring, and it's going to get rejected. The first cars wouldn't start. The first planes crashed. The first time you sketch a picture, even if you're going to be a great artist someday, that first picture is ugly. It just is. If your goal is high enough, I guarantee you, you will fail on the first few attempts. But that does not make you a failure. It means you're trying to do something significant. You have to press past that. You have to get on. So it comes true. Your dream finally is realized. And one consequence of that is that you get to share that with other people. You get to come to a place like beautiful Brazil, and you get to share that experience. So now I want to show you a video, a composite of 3 space flights, of 2 trips to the International Space Station, 4 spacewalks that were my dream coming true. So we'll run the video. When you get to NASA, you spend about a year just training to the basic training, a couple more years in advanced training, and then 1 year of flight-specific training. So you've been there for about 4 years, in my case, until it's time to actually go fly. Can we go ahead and run that? The first thing you do when you start to train is you make a patch. So you'll see here the very first patch for me, right here. And I designed that one because it's a rookie job to do it. The second one, Rick Husband put together. And the third one. The third one has a lot more names on it because by then we had a space station. We were taking crews back and forth to live in space, not just work there. When you get ready to go fly in space, we train in Houston, but we fly in Florida. So we fly this very fast jet from Houston to Florida, about 2,000 kilometers, about 3 days before we go fly. That jet's supersonic, but it still takes an hour and a half to fly from Houston to the Kennedy Space Center. What takes that jet an hour and a half takes the space shuttle 3 minutes. You can fly from Sao Paulo to New York on the space shuttle in 10 minutes. It's fast. So if you have an appointment in New York and you need to get there, I'm the guy to talk to. This is the night before my first flight, about 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm a night person. I'm saying, we're going. This dream is coming true tonight. This thing I waited for 40 years is going to happen. And of course, this part speaks for itself. with me? Let's go. 2.5 minutes on the big boosters, 6 more minutes on the main engines, 8.5 minutes to go 25,000 kilometers per hour. We go 10 kilometers per second. We go around the Earth every 90 minutes. And we dock. We dock with a space station, a place where people are no longer just working in space, but living in space. We use instruments to get us close, but in the end, it's the human eye that docks this vehicle. You look out the window and you fly it into position. Once we're connected, it's time to open the hatch between the space shuttle and the space station. In this particular case, we were picking up the second crew to live on space station, and we were about 2 months late. So as you can see, they're very happy to see us. Thank God you came to get us. This was a record for number of people in space at one time. We had 10 people all in space at one time. That hadn't happened before. And we gather around inside the space station because it's NASA. We do a safety briefing. Don't push this red button. Don't push that red button. But when it's time to actually get to work, the work that we do is not rocket science. It's not complicated mathematics. It's not deep orbital mechanics. It's simple stuff like changing out a battery charger that failed or fixing a radio. It's the sorts of things that anyone in this room could do. It's not complicated. It's just in a brand new environment. We put up mufflers because the sound from the vents are loud. The doors squeak on the space station, so we oil the doors. It's not complicated. We deliver food. That's the way we were trained to deliver food, one guy at a time. This is the way we discovered you deliver food in space. The trainers have never been to space. They don't know how to train you to be there. It's an entirely new environment. The culmination of a 40-year dream was to go outside the space shuttle, to leave the ship and go outdoors on a spacewalk. We spend about a full day just getting our tools ready to go outside. You can see how comfortable we've gotten with passing things back and forth in space. It takes about 2 hours to get dressed the morning of a spacewalk. And there are 174 individual steps that have to be completed to make the suit safe to go outside. And it's really bad to miss one. So we bring along a military guy, a lieutenant colonel in the Marines. And these are the sort of people you can trust to make sure they check every single step. The environment is unforgiving. In the sun, it's 250 degrees. In the shade, it's minus 250 degrees. Nevertheless, to go outside, to see the magnificence of the Earth with only a thin sheet of plastic between your eyes and the planet below you, that was worth every one of those 14 years. That was worth every night I lay awake dreaming about how I would get there. When you do go outside, you're not on your own. You go with a buddy, with a friend, and it's a cooperative venture. And often things go wrong. Here's an example where we had a tool that broke, that wouldn't work. We had to go find another tool to take its place. But as a team, both the crew on board and in Houston, we solved those problems on the fly. You get on a robot arm and your friend drives you from one place to another. It's a cooperative venture. You're not by yourself. Come back inside, get some exercise. Bones and muscle get weak in space. You'll see here in a second, we run on a treadmill, but you can't run on a treadmill in space. You fly off. So you have to use bungee cords to hold you down. Here's lunch on the fly. We do get a few minutes to do some silly astronaut tricks. So here you can see we're spinning each other. That's me. We get better and better as we go on, until finally this guy, he says, my eyes are going to pop out. You can get stuck in the middle of the space shuttle. You can dance in space. I finally had my dance lesson today in Brazil. And we talk about three-dimensional dancing. I hope that we can talk some more about that. It's something really of interest to me. The food is okay. Not much fresh food. Let's just leave it at that. Actually, I like things like the fruit juice and the chicken with rice, that sort of thing. There's no barbecue beef on space station. So I have to say, I've been thrilled to be in Brazil, be treated in the incredible meals that we've had here. Time to undock. We leave the space station and it's beautiful. It's like a golden dragonfly, golden wings, silver body, sitting above the earth. This is what you've come to see. Huh. This is testing the commander with M&Ms, making sure he's ready to fly the landing the next day. Here's some magnets. I brought magnets with me, and again, we can talk later about some engineering surprises in space. They all line up. Why do they all line up? Because they act like a compass, and within the Earth's magnetic field, they all align pointing north. Juice. Liquid is fascinating in zero G. You can push your juice out of a bag, it floats in the air like a ball, and you drink it through a straw straight out of the air. That's the way you drink your morning juice in space. There's some interesting physics going on here. Tammy, who had flown 5 times on the space shuttle by then, brought some little goldfish and put them inside a ball of water, and is showing me how to puff to get the ball of water to move around the cabin. Look at the physics involved in the modes of oscillation of that water. And don't worry about the goldfish, because they were just crackers. Right. We were carrying on so much here that the rest of the crew came back to join us, and you can see we have a juice ball there that we're all going to drink together. But in terms of parties, this is about as good as it gets with astronauts in space. So I hope that you will teach me it can be better than that in Sao Paulo. 2 different juices, just to show you that convection doesn't happen in space. So surface tension dominates. You can see when I take a string and push the 2 balls together, how they coalesce, how they join. Think about the kind of experiments you can do in that environment. Oh, and you have to drink your experiment, which I pretend tastes good, but actually was terrible. We do a lot of student experiments. So this is called Starshine, basically a big disco ball with each mirror polished by a middle school student, and the whole ball reflecting light as we pushed it into orbit. And college students studied orbital mechanics over about 6 months, watching that fly through space. Entry, coming home, is just as dynamic as launch. It starts with big balls of fire popping off the tail every couple seconds. It feels like there's paparazzi outside the space shuttle, flashing, going on. There's St. Elmo's fire running around the inside of the window panes. The whole shuttle hits densities in the atmosphere that make it shake and rattle and roar. It feels like it's going to come apart as you come back down into the atmosphere. It's all flown as a glider. 10,000 kilometers away, we begin entry, and from that point on, there's no engines. It's just a glider. We come on down. This is the image from the pilot's viewpoint. You get one chance. If you miss this runway from 10,000 kilometers away, you'll die. So we train day and night for a year, really, to be able to do this maneuver, to be able to take this aircraft, which is a very difficult aircraft to fly, and the very first time that this pilot has touched the controls, is when he's landing the actual vehicle, because you don't get to go practice fly the space shuttle. There's no way to do that. Training takes over. Every single time that someone's tried to land a space shuttle, they've landed it successfully. We've lost 2 space shuttles, but neither one of those accidents was due to a crew putting in an input that was wrong, because training takes over. And when you work together as a crew and you have a team, you succeed. 40 years I waited to do this. 40 years went by, and this is just a depiction of what the space station looks like now. And people ask me, you waited so long to go. What was the best part? What was the best part of flying in space? And after my first flight, I would tell you the best part of flying in space was seeing the Earth from above the sky, because no photograph can bring you back that image. The whiteness of the clouds and the blackness of space have such dynamic range that it saturates film. You cannot see it in a photograph. The gemstone colors of the Earth, the green of the Amazon, the tan of the Namibian desert, the layers of blue in the atmosphere are not reproduced on film. If you want to see the Earth, you're going to have to go. After my second flight, I would have told you the best thing about flying in space is flying. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is when I first got to space, I went over to the wall of the space shuttle and I pushed off real hard. And I flew across the cabin. And about halfway across the cabin, as I'm flailing, going across, I'm realizing my head's going to hit the wall. And it does. Bam! Push too hard. You don't need to do that. So the second time, you push a little more gently. And it's still too hard, and you're still tumbling, and your head still hits the wall. So the third time, and the fourth time, and the fifth time, eventually you figure it out. All you have to do is take your little finger and touch the wall, and you fly. How does that feel? That feels like you have magic powers. That feels like you are Superman. Yeah, now that is a sensation. If you want to touch the top of this ceiling, back in the corner of that room, all you have to do is fly there. It's incredible. And not only that, you can feel your body change over the course of just a few days. You feel your body say, no, I'm not going to push that hard. I'm going to learn how to fly. It's like learning a whole new sport in just a couple days. You feel your brain change. You feel your reflexes change. And you actually learn to fly. Wow. But on my third flight, I realized that's not the best part of spaceflight. On my third flight, I realized that when we go to space, we go with 5 or 6 of our very best friends. We go with people who we trust our lives to. We spend a year flying jet aircraft at 500 knots, 3 feet apart. If my buddy wiggles the wrong way, we both die. We learn over a year to trust each other with our lives. We learn over a year to communicate without speaking. We learn over a year to know what my friend is feeling, to know when they're in trouble, to know when they're doing well, to know when they need help, and they know when I need help. This sense of comradeship, this sense of friendship, this sense of accomplishment as a team is the best thing about spaceflight. It's the human interaction, it's the connection that you make with other people, the adventure that you share together. That's the best thing about spaceflight. And the funny thing was, in 40 years, I never even thought about that once. I thought about all the other stuff, the flying, seeing the Earth from above the sky, but I never knew what was going to be the most important thing about spaceflight. So even when your dream comes true, there's surprises in there, there's things you didn't expect. And that made me realize that even if my dream had never come true, even if I had never become an astronaut, it would have been okay. Because I knew that I had tried as hard as I could. I knew that I had done everything I could to make that dream come true. And in the process of doing that, I learned so much. So it's not about one person whose dream came true. It's about all the people who did everything they could to force their dream to come true. So I encourage you, whatever it is. I mean, you're doing that today by sitting here. You work all day and you come to school at night because you have a goal, you have a dream, and you are making that dream come true. And I'm proud of you for that. Never stop. Work every day. Never take no for an answer. And your dream, just like mine, will come true. Thank you. Obrigado. Thank you very much. Obrigado.
Thanks, Zé. A gente está com o tempinho um pouquinho justo, mas nós vamos abrir para 2 perguntinhas que vocês queiram fazer para o Dan. Tá legal? Eu vou deixar o microfone com a menina, aí vocês fazem a pergunta para o Dan.
We have some questions? Un momento. You have the ear set? Obrigado. No?
Here, you have done everything and you pursue, and what's now? What's your next dream?
Sure. Right now, after I retired from NASA, which was about 5 years ago, I started to build robots. So I have a small company, and what I would like to do, the robots that I build are right now for people with cognitive and physical disabilities, for people who are in hospitals and need help with mobility. But what I'm really interested in doing, the next dream that I have, is to create a robot that knows it exists, to create a robot that's self-aware. And it's not just about creating the thing, the artificial intelligence. It's because I think if I'm able to create a robot that knows it exists, that is self-aware, it will have an intelligence that's fundamentally different than human intelligence. I'm not interested in creating another human, a robot that's as smart as a human being. There's plenty of human beings on the planet to meet. I want to create an artificial intelligence that knows it exists, and in that process, understand much more about what it means to be sentient, what it means to be human, even though this intelligence will be fundamentally different than human intelligence. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes. How old were you when you first rejected? And another thing, if there was any excuses for you being rejected, or
Yeah.
they don't give any excuses.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
But how old was I when I was first rejected, and what were the reasons? I was 23 the first time I applied, and so I was 37 when I actually got in. And no, there was very little feedback. I didn't know why they rejected me. I thought, well, I'm just too young. All I ever got was, Did you ever get rejected from college and they send you a little thin letter in the mail? And the thin letter says, I'm sorry to inform you that you've been rejected. Well, I was the king of the thin envelopes. I got one of those every single year for 14 years. So I did call once to ask, and they don't really tell you. So you have to ferret it out. You have to understand, why am I being rejected? And I think part of it was I was too young at first. And also part of it was that NASA looks for astronauts who have more than one talent. We have people who are champion skydivers and a PhD in material science. We have people who were underwater professional divers for 7 years and have a PhD in bioengineering and in breathing apparatus. We have people who, one guy is a emergency room physician and on the Olympic luge team, right? So you have to get to a certain age before you can have two talents like that. So I don't really know. If I'd really known, I would have gotten there quicker. Back in the back.
A última pergunta, tá bom?
Hi there.
Hi.
I would like to know, you said you took magnetics to space. That's an incredible idea. I would never thought about that. But I've read that you also took a copy of StarCraft game to the space. Is that true?
Yes. In fact, my son is in the audience today, right there laughing. When I was training to go to space, I was away from home a lot, of course. And I had 2 young children. So you have to find ways to stay connected with your family when you're far away and you're training in faraway places. So one thing that I did was I would read books to my children. Every night for an hour, hour and a half at night, I would read a book over the phone to them. But another way, especially as Andy got older, that we stayed connected is we would play this game StarCraft together. And we played so much that I decided that that was the game that I should bring with me to space. So we didn't actually play in space, but I brought it with me, and I was really pleased to bring that disc back to to Blizzard, which is the company that manufactures the game. And I did it not just because we played this game, but because I wanted to bring a message to the people who worked at Blizzard and tell them that, you know, they may think that they're just working on a video game, but in my case, they produced something that allowed me to stay closer to my family, and that it wasn't just a game to us, it was a connection for us. And I think that I was hoping that that was a message that I could bring to them that might be something they hadn't heard before, because it really did mean a lot to me. And now, actually, it's funny because the next version of StarCraft, which is StarCraft 2, the beta version has just come out, and it came out right before I started on this trip. And so Andy has been playing for like 2 weeks, and I haven't got to play yet, so he's gonna kill me. You know?
Amazing, thanks a lot.
Sure. Any more? Thanks.